Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Andrew Turner, host and founder of the G&T Sessions podcast. And today we have an amazing guest, Mr. Marcus Cauchi. How are you, Marcus?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me, Andrew.
No problem. Good to see you. And thanks for coming on the show on a strange, funny time these days. Nothing's when you think about crazy times. I've never experienced anything before. You probably haven't either. It just makes you wonder what you're doing these days, isn't it? It's quite scary.
I see this as the best opportunity any professional seller has or will ever have in their entire working life. You're stuffed if you're in hospitality, selling airplanes or aircraft engines and that kind of thing, events. But if you're in SaaS and you're doing something that can help people become efficient, improve their sales, collaborate, then you should be absolutely hammering it. And this
golden era. Yeah,
absolutely. Nothing like this will ever fall across your lap ever again in your career, hopefully, because who wants another pandemic? But if you're not exploiting this for everything it's worth, you're crazy.
Yeah. I don't know if I suppose. Well, firstly, I was going to say you've got a lovely picture behind you, which means that I suspect you are a famous author. Is that right?
Well, I'm more of an infamous author, but I've written a book with my co-author, David Davies, called Making Channel Sales Work. And both of us have been working in and around channels for 30, 35 years. And it's generally the ginger-haired, illegitimate, ugly stepdaughter of direct sales. Given what's happened with COVID, no one's going to be able to step into an aluminium tube and fly across the globe to go and see a prospect without being in quarantine for 2 weeks either end.
Yeah.
If you want to sell internationally, you better get yourself sorted around the channel. And where most people go wrong is they build a land army instead of a special forces unit. You
mean they build a field force? You mean?
Well, they have you come across something called Price's Law?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Right. Well, for those of you who haven't, Price's Law states that 50% of your production will come from the square root of the number of people in your organization. So if you have 10 salespeople, 3 will produce 50%. If you have 100 distributors, 10 will produce 50%. If you have 10,000 partners, 100 will produce 50%. It seems to me like there is a huge opportunity here for sales leaders, founders, CEOs to take a blank sheet of paper to their sales organization and rebuild it from scratch and focus on those top 50% producers and use the budget by redeploying, realigning, or replacing the bottom 50% producers. If you've got 50 salespeople and you're paying them 50 grand a year, that's £2.5 million.
Yeah.
You're only paying 7 of them for producing 50%. The other 43, there's just shy of 2.2 million quid there that could be redeployed, building a really strong SDR team to support them.
Yeah.
Strong marketing, because this is another area that's absolutely ripe for redevelopment. Facebook adverts has less than 1.3, I think it's 1.3% of their adverts actually get clicked, which means $56 billion a year of corporate and personal marketing spend is wasted because they get 0 clicks.
Just pour down the drain.
Just on Facebook.
Wow.
You multiply that out across LinkedIn.
Instagram.
Instagram. It's an obscene amount of money. And it's wasted because they're focused on the wrong end of the problem. What they're trying to do is get the vanity metrics of clicks and views.
MQLs.
Yeah, absolutely. Marketing. The reality is that most salespeople are order takers at best. They're zookeepers. Right. Basically, their job is to keep the animals alive.
You mean? Are you talking about the hunters and farmers analogy? Is that what you're talking about? Or
I'd go further than that. People who can sell and people who have salesperson on their job on their business card.
Okay.
But basically take orders And if they get anything over the line, they're lucky. We did a research study last year, and we identified that only 13% of sales teams globally hit their quota. Only 44% of individual reps hit their quota last year. This year, that's going to tank. Only 6% of sales managers, and this is where, if you start looking at the root cause, only 6% of managers in sales are qualified for the job. That means 94% are not, because they're doing what was done to them. They're focused on the wrong end of the problem. They're focused on daft metrics. Number of dials. Who cares how many dials you make? It's the number of unique, effective conversations.
Yeah, it's like outcomes, isn't it? It should be outcomes.
Absolutely. Well, it's inputs and outcomes. But the focus on dials, number of demos. And I started working with a software vendor, and they get 600 downloads a month, of which they convert 0.5%. Now that's 1,200 wasted conversations of their very small sales team, spending time talking to people who can only say no or maybe. I mean,
so what you're saying, though, Mark, is that you're saying they're not qualifying hard enough?
They're being asked to do stupid things by idiotic leadership.
So, like, the KPIs are all wrong. They're measuring the wrong stuff.
Absolutely. They're focused on the wrong end of the problem.
Yeah, but okay. Anyway, just before we jump into the meat and two veg, that was a good start, though. What does get you out of bed in the morning? I can tell you, you jump out of bed with a big passion. I can tell you that from the first 2 minutes.
Absolutely. I'm normally out of bed between 4:30 and 5.
Good man. Join the club.
Well, it's my favorite time of day because no one bothers me then. And I've got 4 or 5 hours of run rate where I can do really interesting stuff. Get
your head in gear kind of thing.
Well, it's in gear by the time I wake up anyway, because I think the last half hour of my dream is essentially working out what I'm going to do for the day.
Right.
I just love selling. I genuinely live to sell. I don't sell to live. Yeah. I clearly eat what I kill, and I kill quite.
For those on the audio thing, I think, obviously you need to watch the video version, but at the end of the day, it's all about choices. It's all about choices, Marcus. It's all about choices.
I'm 5'7", and I'm the right weight for a man of 17'6". The grim reality is that selling is something that you need to develop constantly. I reckon I am by no means the finished product. I hear salespeople constantly saying, I've got 10, 20 years experience. They haven't. They got 1 year's experience 20 times over. And that 1 year wasn't very good experience either. What they learned to do was cope with being kicked. They got battered, and they learned to cope with rejection. But they didn't become productive. Most salespeople, bluntly, are functionally illiterate. They stopped learning the minute they left school or university. And it drives me insane. If we want to turn,
that's quite a harsh statement, that, though, isn't it? I mean, it's your experience that you've actually, because obviously you've met a lot of people in what you do, which I presume at some point you'll explain what you do. But it sounds like you've got an interesting set of data points that you believe that the quality's not there and the development's not there. Is that what you're saying, or the impetus to learn's not there? Drive?
It's a bit of both. I think you have 5 competitors: fear, apathy, ignorance, denial, and ego. Fear actually is often a good thing. But if you allow it to paralyze you, then that's problematic.
Yeah.
Apathy, frankly, that's an attitudinal thing. And if you've got someone who's apathetic, just get rid of them.
Yeah.
Will versus ability. I would rather have people who have the will. If they don't have the ability yet, you can
train them in. Yeah.
Mostly. I mean, I've trained some people who'd been written off, and they were 12% of what they needed to be, and within a year they were at 200% of quota.
Right.
Now, fear, apathy, ignorance. That's the easiest thing to deal with. They just don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
Denial is often tied to ego, and ego is the biggest enemy of all. If you're brittle, if you can't take direction, if you are not constantly looking to improve, then that's a personality defect. And more often than not, you see this with companies where people have come from big brands. Okay, so let's pretend you've come from a big brand which has got 4 colored squares in a box. Or you've come from
I couldn't guess who that was.
Or you've come from an organization that has 3 blue letters made up of 7 blue lines, and you think you're the bee's knees.
Right.
When you actually start in a startup or a scale up, you die on your ass.
Well, that's where the rubber hits the road, isn't it, Marcus? That's the thing.
Absolutely. And most salespeople, I mean, we interview for our clients a lot. And what we found is A players, on average, come along 1 in 200 candidates.
Wow.
Yeah, 0.5%. B players, somewhere between 6 and 12%, depending on the industry. But A players are 1 in 200. Now, what that means is most managers spend their time avoiding recruitment because it's not really their day job. Well, I hate to tell you this, it's your number 1 job. Managers have 4 functions in my book that should be on every job description. Hire the best salespeople, get the best out of them, make sure they have the tools and resources.
Support them, yeah.
Well, not only support them, but hold them accountable, train them, coach them, develop them. And the 4th one is make sure that you help them clear the roadblocks and protect them from acts of idiocy from above, from senior management.
Yeah, so give them cover. Yeah.
Give them cover, but also get them to understand what real selling is. Selling is not showing up and throwing up, quoting and hoping, and then getting an order and running and hoping to get the order through before they cancel.
What's the phrase? Drive-by shooting.
Absolutely. The drive-by shooting is still commonplace. And what's interesting, I interviewed Tom Castley from Outreach, and he said that the best people for promotion into management are the ones who have the highest level of portfolio penetration within their accounts. They're not the top performers, but they're the ones that think.
They can like land and expand kind of thing.
They not only do they land and expand, but they're really empathic. They listen. They pay attention.
Right. Yeah. They become the trusted advisor kind of thing of the account.
Again, I think that's a phrase that's bandied around and people don't really understand what it means. What they are good servants.
Right.
They serve their customer. And service is not servitude.
Yeah, I understand.
I spoke to Stephen Covey before he died years back. And I asked him a very bland, mundane question. He came back with a watershed response. It was literally a turning point in my career. And his response to my average question, which I cannot even remember, was the greatest among us serve the most.
Right.
And the best salespeople, the best managers, the best CEOs, the best CROs, the best CEOs are great servants.
Well, that's a bit like the version by Simon Sinek about leaders eat last. It's a bit like that. It's a bit similar to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So what do you do then? What is in your world these days? How do you occupy your time?
Well, I describe myself rather cynically as a fitness instructor. There you go. That's the normal response I get when people see me.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I like it.
Well, what I do is I take soft, flabby, redundant sales processes and people, and I kick them into shape, kicking and screaming sometimes. But what I do is I help people who are, they've got the right kind of drive, right kind of makeup. But what they're lacking is structure, strategy. They don't have good systems. They are wasting an awful lot of time, effort, resource, money on pursuits that they shouldn't. And so what I do is I help them kick all of that into shape. Now,
so you kind of streamline them, kind of thing. Is that right?
Yeah. So it's training, it's coaching, it's strategy, it's designing and developing structures and programs. So in essence, what I really want to be known for is helping tech scale-ups achieve massive scale,
right,
but without taking on an army of mediocre salespeople or channel partners, and without spending a fortune on advertising and marketing. And I've worked in, 500 plus segments of the market. across 24 of the 26 vertical markets.
Wow.
And what I've realized is that the biggest problem actually is blurred vision at the top. They don't really understand where they want to go, why they want to get there, how they're going to get there. And as a result, they're
you mean what their growth mission is of the company, you mean? Or?
Well, partly, but also, why they're in business and for whom. Who their
That's pretty fundamental, that.
You'd think, wouldn't you? But how many companies are out there and they say, "Oh, we can help everyone." Well, so what?
Right? Yeah. They're not really focused on a niche and a real problem. It's
if you help everyone, you help no one.
Yeah.
And what you say no to matters more than what you say yes to.
But that's the thing about the qualifying out, isn't it? The thing about being brave enough to qualify out, but then actually being brave enough to identify organisations which you can help, and being really focused about winning that account. It creates some interesting mindsets around those points, you see.
Andrew, there are a couple of reasons why this doesn't happen. One is the salespeople are spineless. They've got jelly spines. They don't have spines of steel. And selling is a full contact blood sport. It's not.
It's like Jean-Claude Van Damme kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, kind of, but I think of it more in sales. I think the best salespeople are intelligently lazy.
Okay.
What we do is we work in sprints, and we spend a lot of time in the planning, the thinking. If you're in a commodity sale, yeah, I get it. You've got to be transacting all the time. But the problem is that most salespeople are fat, dumb, and happy. They live off their basic salary. They don't really care enough to want to make the commission.
Right.
Their management are misguided anyway. And again, whatever crap I give to salespeople, trust me, it's tenfold for managers and it's 100-fold for leaders. So just buckle up. So
strap in. Yeah.
Absolutely, you are going to be offended shortly. What most salespeople do is they spend their time on unproductive activity, focused on the wrong kinds of prospects. They have weak or empty pipelines, so they're uncomfortable with the whole idea of
qualifying out. Yeah, because they haven't got a plan B or plan C.
Absolutely. And so what they do is they spend their time trying to keep in non-opportunities that shouldn't be in there. So they spend their time on non-op opportunities who shouldn't be in their pipeline because they want it to look fat so that they look busy, and they keep their salary paid because they want the mortgage or rent paid for the next month. Now, their managers don't hold their feet to the fire because the managers have no idea how to qualify, because they were tapped on the shoulder and told, "Andrew, congratulations, you're a manager now," because they were the top performing salesperson.
Right.
Making your top performing salesperson the manager is an act of idiocy and self-sabotage. Okay, let me make this clear.
You mean, but is that for the person and also for the team? Yeah, exactly.
For the company, for the team, and for the individual, it's an act of stupidity because they almost never make good managers. The best managers are ones who have a different skill set, different mindset. And player managers, this is something that really pisses me off, okay? A player manager never works out because under pressure, they will focus on hitting their target. Now, what are their number one?
What you mean their individual target or
their personal quota?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Their job.
They maximize their comp plan. Yeah.
Well, let me repeat. Okay, a manager has 4 items on their job description: hire the best people. Recruitment is your number one job. Prospecting for new candidates is a daily activity and is your equivalent of a salesperson prospecting for new sales.
Yeah.
Number 2, get the best out of them. That means pre-onboarding, onboarding, training, coaching, accountability. It does not mean product training. It doesn't mean boring them to death about the widgets and ins and outs of your carbungulator and why it's better than the defibrillator on someone else's Rippets.
Yeah.
None of that stuff matters because no one in the history of humanity has ever woken up and said, you know what I really want? I want some machine learning, or I want some CRM, or I want some hemorrhoid cream. There's a reason why you want it. Your piles are hurting. Okay? So focus on the right end of the problem.
So what you're saying is don't sell on features, sell on problem solving.
Well, yes, but also understand that people buy for their reasons, not your reasons.
Yes, yeah.
And it never crossed my mind, ever, that someone would buy my training because they wanted IVF treatment. There are two sets of twins out there that are out there because clients came to me because they needed to make enough money to pay for IVF. It never crossed my mind that someone would buy my service in order to buy the flat next door because they ran out of wall space for their modern art collection. It never crossed my mind that I would be an insurance policy for school fees, and it never crossed my mind that someone would spend 20 grand with me so they could make enough money to pay for an 80 grand vet's bill because Jacob the horse got lame and he wanted to keep Jacob instead of turning him into pedigree chum and glue. And Jacob is still running around fields, jumping over.
Oh, I see. So what you're saying is in people buying your service or your offer,
yeah,
they were using it as a contingent plan to fix their other problem.
Yeah, there was a better future ahead.
What drove their decision? Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. And it had nothing to do with wanting sales training. So, yeah. What people need to understand, hire the best people, get the best out of them, make sure that they have the tools and resources they need to do their best work every day, and help them clear the path. Protect them from acts of idiocy from your senior management or from you if you are senior management, and clear the roadblocks on deals that are things that are preventing them from being able to do their best work. That's it. That's a manager's job. Now, promoting your top salesperson to do that whilst also giving them a personal production target is absolute idiocy. And I see this all the time.
So just a quick question. I mean, so I know that you're going to explain what you do at some point, but some of those stories are very, very useful and very, very truthful. From being a sales leader and being a salesperson in my backstory, my current story, my future story. The situation, I suppose, is around what you're raising is that obviously sales has been around for quite a long time. But yet some of the stats that you shared say that actually it's still in the kind of, it's still not where it needs to be. Some kind of scary stats that you shared actually about that, which I presume is some recent stuff you've done. I mean, it sounds like there's a big problem that's not being addressed really.
Well, I'm going to address this from the flip side. Okay. I'm going to posit another idea. Okay. Imagine it's the 1st of January 2021. And between now and then, you could take a blank sheet of paper and you could redesign your sales operation as it should be. Not as it is. And you had carte blanche to do whatever you needed to do to make your sales operation blindingly
the best it could be. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. Of the salespeople and the channel partners that you currently have and your managers, how many of them would still be on your payroll or on your channel roster? How many of them would you genuinely want to keep? And who would you want to recruit to replace the ones you got rid of? Okay, you'd want people like your A-player performers. Yeah. And you'd want to build beneath them an infrastructure that allows you to enable those A-players to perform at their peak every day. And a marketing operation, because let's face it, the amount of money you squander on marketing that is totally ineffectual. Who on earth ever came up with the idea that a product data sheet would help you sell shit? It doesn't. The only people who look at product data sheets are people like engineers who can say no or maybe, but cannot say yes. And it slows your sales process.
Yeah, they're an influencer, they're a recommender, but they're not a decision maker or e-commit buyer. Yeah.
And honestly, I'm not even sure they're that. I think most of them are gatekeepers.
Yeah, okay.
They're blockers.
Yeah. They create hurdles. Yeah.
Absolutely. In many cases, they're going to be the turkey voting for Christmas if they bring you in. So they see you as a threat. So they say nice things about you, and then they find ways of obfuscating. And you see so much waste. It's obscene. It's disgusting. Now,
so I suppose I've got your initial introduction, the thing you've just been talking about raises lots and lots of questions in my head, because my experience would be, when I left Tesco and I went to work for Wandisco, I was the only guy in EMEA, and we didn't have any funding. We funded it ourselves. Yeah. So you kind of like if you don't book sales, you don't eat. Yeah. So it kind of creates a massive focus for you. Yeah. So it's probably one of the hardest jobs I've ever done. But the things I learned in that time and then around worldwide sales was, I realize now how much I learned and how much of the things that you just can't replicate. And you see organizations today. So all the stuff you've been talking about is spot on. It's a bit this reset. It's back to basics. Yeah. It's back to absolutely, doing the right thing. And creating value and actually getting on with it, because I think that some of these it sounds like some of these sales organizations that you've been working with are still they're not optimized, they're not set up for success.
Well, they're certainly getting there, but it's not a pleasant experience. I mean, no one brings me in for hugs and cuddles. I always make it very, very clear to people right from the outset. 5 minutes in, I tell people 2 reasons why they won't want to work with me. The first one is it's never a pleasant experience. No one brings me in so that I can tell them, yeah, Andrew, just keep doing what you're doing. It'll all work out in the wash, because it bloody well won't. Okay. Second reason is it's eye-wateringly, sphincter-poppingly expensive. Let's just put that out there. Okay.
It's reassuringly expensive. Is that what you say? It's like the advert. What is it? What's the advert for that?
Yeah, for Stella. But yeah. The reality is that, who wants a sales trainer who discounts? And in all seriousness,
it's back to basics, isn't it? Yeah.
If a sales trainer discounts, do you want them in front of your reps, being a wimp and teaching them how to discount? I was listening to a webinar a couple of weeks back, and thank God my microphone was off, because the stream of vitriol that would have gone through my mic at that point was just horrific.
You mean they stopped all the mic for anybody talking?
No. My microphone was switched off because I was just a listener. But it was lucky because the polemic that would have gone his way. He was saying, well, in this economy, we have to discount in order to get deals over the line.
Right. Yeah.
That's a fundamental misunderstanding from acts of idiocy from above, okay, where leaders don't understand sales.
But just a second on that, Mark. I mean, one of the things that is that being driven by this quarterly mentality as well.
Partly. It's VC and private.
Yeah, no, I know.
It's the quarterly mentality. And again, I listened to a fabulous Great Courses program called From Yao to Mao, and it's the history of China over the last 4,000 years.
Okay.
And did you know that China had an empire of 1 billion people 3,000 years ago?
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Which they ran with ruthless efficiency, despite the fact they didn't have mobile phones or computers. Okay. Now
no WhatsApp. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is a country or a nation that operates on 100-year plans.
Yeah.
So when we hear the Orange Peril giving them grief about trade, tariffs and all that stuff, he's just a blip.
Oh, you mean Mr. T? You mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. And not B.A. Baracus, the other Mr. T.
No, the other one, the orange one. Now, if you think about it, in 2008, when we had the crash, people who moved their investments into cash still haven't recovered. Okay, they're still catching up, because that's moving into cash meant that they came out of the market, and because they panicked, because they don't think long term. What they think about.
You mean they cashed out, basically?
Yeah, they cashed out.
Because they lost their nerve and when they came out of the market, they didn't think it was going to recover.
Absolutely.
Right.
Now, You need to be bold in this marketplace. COVID, I absolutely believe, is the best opportunity any of us will ever have. Now, what this means is that we need to rethink sales and marketing. We need to think about the continuum, because another problem that we have is the silos that go between brand and marketing and lead generation. And,
you mean what I call the different castles? You know, like the castle with the catapult. You know, you catapult stuff into the next castle.
Absolutely, and it's disconnected, and the customer doesn't care where they're being touched. What they care about is, are you solving my problem? And is the experience any good? And do I feel like I've derived value? Now, what we see all the time, every single organization that's out there, or virtually everyone, apart from the 2%, there are 2% out there that do a really good job. The majority of the rest, frankly, they live off inertia. Your average salesperson is hitting between 40 and 60% of quota. That's average. That's a travesty. But that's often driven by...
It's a killer for your forecast and your outturn, isn't it? Well, because it's like mind the gap. I mean, if you got that kind of miss.
Well, again, there are a number of reasons that if you look at the cause of this, would it surprise you if I told you only 20% of the data contained in CRM is of any real value? So organizations...
There's some very nice CRM systems out there. They're very nice.
They're brilliant.
They're very beautiful, very pretty, very pretty.
Now,
garbage in, garbage out, you mean? Surely not.
Well, absolutely. So your average forecast is a little better than putting your finger in the air and testing which way the wind is blowing. I'm always very rude about most economists. Economists were put on the planet to make soothsayers look good. And I think the average sales manager is pretty much the same because their forecast accuracy is pitiful.
Well, I was going to say, the classic fan, forecast accurate number. What's your view on that?
Well, your forecast accuracy.
Is it like a weird dream? Is it like a dream that you have?
Well, it's easy to get a forecast accurate if you focus on the right inputs. Okay. Where most organizations go wrong is they measure all the wrong stuff that no one cares about. And you've got spreadsheet jockeys. I'm keeping my eyes on the numbers like a hawk. So what? All that tells me is that you're a shit manager and you have no place in sales. If you're focused on the numbers, then you're not focused on the behavior that gets you the number. What matters is the number of daily, unique, effective conversations your reps are having. So they make the dial, they get past the gatekeeper, they get through to the decision maker, they contract with them that they're going to deliver the reason for the purpose of the call, and then the buyer or the prospect is going to make a decision, either yes, they talk further, or no, they don't. In most SaaS businesses, if you do 5 of those a day, in most enterprise businesses, professional services business, 5 of those a day will probably get you 25 a month, 25 a week, 100 a month, 125 a month. Chances are you will fill your pipeline up.
Yeah.
Second thing is the velocity with which opportunities get moved
through the pipe. Yeah.
Most salespeople's pipeline take on the shape of a pair of old granny knickers, and what they should look like is a thong. Wide at the top, narrow at the bottom, and all the good stuff in the gusset. What you see.
I love your analogies. They're great. I thought I was pretty good at analogies, but I think you beat me.
Well, I've got another good one that's probably going to get the PC brigade upset. Either it looks like Dolly Parton, it bulges at the top, or it looks like Kim Kardashian, it bulges at the top. And what it should do is it needs to look lean, and you need to be driving genuine opportunities through it and getting all the crap out. Now, if you don't do that, then what happens is your forecast is basically this work of fiction. So again, another thing, never have forecast meetings with the entire sales team. Why would you torment them? And think about the opportunity cost.
Well, it's kind of like a name and shame thing as well, isn't it, sometimes? It can get into that, it can get a bit messy.
I always call it the whack, the weekly arse kicking. What happens there is you've got 10 salespeople listening to everyone else fib for 10 minutes. So what you've got is 110 man-minutes wasted every single week. Now, you multiply that out across 48 weeks a year, Okay. So that's roughly 5,000 man minutes. So you're wasting what? 3 months of a salesperson's time. Now, 3 months of revenue, that could be just your sales meeting.
So it's like this effective selling time. That's what you're saying.
Well, the forecast conversation, the pipeline conversation should be one-on-one between the manager and the salesperson. It's 2 to 3 minutes a day. What's new in your pipeline? What's advanced in your pipeline? Why hasn't it advanced? What are you going to do?
What's getting in the way? Yeah.
And how can I help you block it?
It's a bit like what you say. It's like a bit like an agile stand-up, really, isn't it?
Yeah. So you need to be far savvier and focus your attention on what you can control and what matters instead of what you can't control and what doesn't. The average salesperson spends 80% of their working life chasing people they should have closed or disqualified on the last conversation. 80%. If you just eliminate that one step, that's a 400% increase in
productivity. Yeah.
Now, if your salespeople were doing 400% more of almost anything else, they'd improve. You don't need training. Just get them to being highly inefficient 4 times more frequently. And whatever crap they're producing at the moment, they'll produce 4 times more of it. But you'll probably start getting closer to quota. And the majority of managers are wasting so much of their time because they're being beaten from above, because their leadership doesn't value sales.
Well, that's the thing I was going to ask you about. There's so many questions coming up. I was going to ask you before we continue, because I want to come back to some questions in that topic. Is about the G and the T, right? Because we're on the G and T Sessions podcast, right?
Yep.
So obviously, I know you. I don't know if that's. I hope that's not gin you're just drinking there.
No, it's whiskey.
Hey, bit of Jack Daniels. There you go.
Oh God, awful stuff.
Yeah. Okay, a bit of Scottish whiskey, some nice one. So, in terms of your backstory, because what the value you've just delivered in those first, that first part of the session was incredibly insightful. But obviously, you didn't know all that stuff by overnight. Yeah, you've built up that knowledge and you built up experience. So what? Can you explain to the audience what your heritage is, what your backstory is?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how have you grown into this kind of very insightful, very insightful, intelligent kind of guy that's actually giving real value very, very quickly, which is it's impactful. It's impactful to a sales leader.
Well, you can fool some of the people all of the time. So I did a degree in Middle Eastern studies, which qualified me to look at spaghetti hoops running across a page in a hungover haze for 4 years, avoiding work, which was great. If you got kids, send them to university, not for the degree, just to make sure that they avoid work for 4 years. Fine.
Well, my 2 sons are 16 and 14, so they've got that to look forward to. So absolutely.
But I enjoyed university. And while I was at university, I got my first sales job part-time. And there I learned the joy of upsell. So I was going to network marketing meetings selling attachments for water filters. And I did an upsell from 50 pence to £136 and 80p plus VAT.
Is that the refills? The refills you do?
No, it was all the attachments. It was for a company called NSA. So they did air filters and water filters. But it was, it was a company that supported that. And then I did that for a year. And I actually broke even, which was a minor miracle because I didn't have a clue. But it got me onto the personal development ladder. And I started reading Tony Robbins and Steve Covey and all that.
Right.
And then I thought, well, I may as well get trained by other people. So for the next 17 years, I learned virtually nothing. And I left at least £56 million of my employer's money on the table because I learned how to show up, throw up, quote, hope, sell, and run.
Which is that best practice that you said shouldn't be doing.
Absolutely. But what I did was I fell into what in Sandler we call the buyer-seller dance, where you qualify for BANT. And forgive me for being blunt, but BANT is bollocks. Okay, BANT is absolute tosh.
Can you explain what BANT is in your very kind of unique way?
Well, it means budget, authority, need, and time. But the average salesperson asks, Andrew, Do you have a budget? Yes. Do you have authority to make this decision? Yes. Do you have a project? Yes. When were you hoping to do it? Sometimes they don't even bother to ask that. And they think they're qualified. It's anything but qualified.
It's a shoe-in. It's the bluebird.
If you happen to win a sale, having done that loose qualification, it's luck, not judgment. Okay. Now, once you've done that poor qualification, then what you do is you show up and throw up, and you present your wares, and you tell them about you, your company, your history, who your investors are, about your product range, what the features and the benefits are. At which point they're slitting their wrists, thinking, "How quickly can I get this?"
Well, they've fallen asleep by then, basically. Yeah.
Well, I always equate it to showing photos of your ugly children to strangers. Yeah. And they'll politely sit there for one or two, but then they're thinking, when will this torment end? And then,
see, I knew, just to let you know, I knew this episode was going to be entertaining, but you're even overachieving on that already. It's brilliant.
Excellent. I should be on the stage. Sweet. So then the next thing is, you hear all these things that you've been taught by your idiot manager are buying signals, questions. Actually, it's a trap to move into free consultancy. So you answer all these questions, and they're effusive and positive, and they give you positive signals, and they tell you this is great. Well, how would you help us do this? We've got a problem with this. How would you help us solve that? And then you go, bleh, and you vomit up all the answers. Anyway, all you're doing is you're putting a little tick in their head that says, yes, I know where to go should I ever decide that I'm going to part with money to do this. But I'll probably see if I can do this myself, or I'll go to my preferred supplier or my incumbent and get them to do it. Now, then
you mean somebody, if you're selling service to somebody on your PSL?
Well, it doesn't matter whether you're selling hardware, software, or whatever else. You probably go out to the market after this is not very PC, but I urge everyone to go onto YouTube and type in Silicon Valley brain rape. And there is a scene in there where they're going to see what they think is a venture capital firm. And all they're doing is they're milking them for insights because they're actually a competitor. Right. And you see this happen. This is why you should never take your sales engineer on an early sales meeting. Product knowledge used early in the sale is lethal. And what it does is it reduces the probability of closing. It increases cost in the prospect's mind. And it also lengthens the sales cycle. The only purpose of product knowledge in the sale is to help you ask better questions. But most people go on a day, a week, a month of product training, and then they come out and then they tell people about their product. Right. Stop showing photos of your ugly children to strangers. Okay. Once they get
sounds like you got a bit of a perspective on sales engineering as well. Okay, no, I don't want to stop your flow, but it's interesting. Okay. You're raising some of the things which I personally lived through, so it's very interesting conversation.
Well, I'll come back to that if you bring me there. So then you trial close because you think you've had all these buying signals.
Yeah.
At which point you field a bunch of objections that you created. Salespeople, prospects don't object unless the salespeople take them there. Salespeople are the cause of objections.
Yeah, because they're not navigating down the right path, basically.
Well, they're not selling; they're order taking at best. Now, once you've handled all the objections, then the coup de grace from the prospect is, Andrew, it's clear you know your stuff. Get me a proposal, okay? And the salesperson thinks, ka-ching, got one. The number of times I speak to sales organizations where their conversion rate on proposals is 12 or 14%. And actually, if I'm being honest, that is quite high. That's quite high.
I dare ask you the stats on RFI, RFPs.
Sorry. RFIs, and follow this rule. All RFPs are bogus. Okay? Start with that premise. Now, occasionally, some of them might be real. However, ask these 3 questions. where are you in your decision-making process? Are you gathering information? Bogus RFP, hint. Are you defining specification? Bogus RFP, second hint. Or are you at the point where you are ready to select a partner? Now, if they're at that third point, then it may be worth your while pursuing it. I've created something called the RFP Truth Finder. And it's 2 pages of questions before you put finger to keyboard.
Is it like the Crystal Maze?
Pretty much. But, if you don't, the 3 highest hidden costs in any business, okay? The highest hidden cost is wrong hires. Now, in enterprise selling, it will cost you somewhere between 35 and 125 times salary to make the wrong hire. One of my pals, Phil McGowan, is an academic who has started and grown 8 businesses before he decided to become an academic and study sales. And he's distilled the findings from 5,000 papers on selling. And he distilled those down to 150 of the best. And he's produced one. And his research suggests it takes 38 months to recover after a salesperson leaves.
Ooh.
Okay. So number 1 highest hidden cost.
That's the hangover from it.
Absolutely. So the number 1 highest hidden cost is wrong hires. Number 2 highest hidden cost is hidden cost of sale. Think about this. Have you ever asked yourself what the cost of pursuit is if you're going after a big deal, win or lose? Now, on average, what we're finding is it's anywhere between 40,000 and $1 million, okay, depending on the size of the enterprise pursuit. But 40 grand, let's say it's just 40K, okay? And you have to go through 12 of those to get one over the line. Yeah, 12 fours is 48. Yeah. That's £480,000 you've sunk in hidden cost. Now, if you're making 3 million and you're only making 30%, it's halfway through year 2 before you start seeing a real profit. But because it's hidden and it's not on the balance sheet, you write it off. And
it's like having an anchor. It's like having an anchor on you, isn't it?
Well, it's like having a millstone.
That's what. Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. It's like a weight.
Absolutely. Now, the third highest hidden cost is hidden cost of RFPs. Now, what I do is I help people solve all 3 of those problems or avoid them and prevent them. Now,
so what you're saying is it's tactics and strategy. That's what you focused on.
I operate in a number of areas: strategy, structure, systems, skills, staff, and partnerships. And looking at each of those, it doesn't matter what my entry point is. Chances are we're going to end up touching all of those because if you think about a sales ecosystem, like trying to take a photograph, there are 3 variables when you take a photograph. There's your shutter speed, there's the aperture, and there's the speed of the film or the ISO number. Now, if I modify the aperture and I haven't adjusted at least one of the other 2, then the picture will be washed out or too dark.
Yeah.
Okay. And sales is an organism. And the problem is that what most people do when they bring trainers in, and this is why, stop wasting your money on sales training. Okay. Sales training does not work because the way most of you do it is you bring someone in for a day or 2, and then you try and feed people from a fire hose, and you're trying to change a lifetime of bad beliefs and terrible habits. And expect them to change. It doesn't work like that. Sales is an ongoing
process. I'm going to say it's a continuous learning process, isn't it?
You'd think. But most L&D departments, frankly, waste the space when it comes to sales training. Sales enablement directors, frankly, are people looking for a job. They're trying to justify their existence. I've yet to come across a sales enablement director. Please, if you're good, get in touch. Most of you are wasting everyone's time and money.
There was even I saw there was an online conference. Did you see it? There was an online conference, I think, last week or the week ago, just dedicated to sales enablement.
Sales enablement, brilliant.
It's even. No. I know it's a very important discipline. I think it's like these capabilities are being amplified because obviously there are across those dimensions you mentioned, your S dimensions, it's not just one thing, it's complex.
Well, let me make this point. If you've got the basics right, it amplifies the good stuff. If you haven't got the basics right, it amplifies the bad stuff. That's why sales enablement doesn't work. Frankly, most sales enablement investment at the moment, you may as well buy lottery tickets. You're going to increase your return far higher than spending it on sales enablement. Get the fundamentals right, then invest in sales enablement. But the majority of investment on sales enablement is utterly squandered. And I don't want to upset people. Well, I don't really care, actually. But the reality is most of you are throwing money, good money, after a problem, and you're trying to focus on the wrong end of it. You're focused on symptom, not cause. If you try and fix a symptom, the problem doesn't go away. It just shifts or gets worse. And that's why we see so many companies. What goes backwards at 12 miles an hour?
Don't know.
Traffic jam. And so what you see, and this is why the private equity venture capital model, I think, is bust. Okay, and I've got a real bug. Okay, I'm not making friends.
You're touching on a little interesting nugget there.
Okay. Well, if I look at most venture and private equity-backed tech companies, they're driven by this quarterly reporting, and they're told to go on this land grab. And
there's this kind of formula they have to kind of path. Yeah. They have to, they're supposed to follow.
You need to look at how private equity gets paid.
Yes.
They operate something called the 220 model. If they raise a fund of $500 million, they get 2% of that as a management fee every year. Okay, so they're fat, dumb, and happy. And they get 20% of the carry, which means when they get a company to IPO, let's say they float it for $200 million, they get 20% of that, so they get $40 million out. Okay, now, what most of them are looking for is a unicorn or a couple of whales and elephants, but they don't care about the rest. So out of 43 companies, 3 might make it, and 40 die on the vine.
What about the gazelles? They need the gazelle in there as well, don't they?
Yeah, okay. I mean, the odd gazelle would be nice, but most of the gazelles end up dying as well. I heard about a couple of instances where venture capital companies actually killed businesses that were profitable because they couldn't fiddle the valuation.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you want a corrupt and broken model, look at people who are operating bad money. Money comes in 3 forms: good money, dumb money, and bad money. So good money actually knows what they're doing. They parachute in great people, and they help you. They help you build the pipeline, connect you, put great people in. They advise you. They hold you to account. But that is rare. Okay, dumb money leaves you to get on with it, and then bad money.
You mean dumb money just throws the money in, doesn't really help you?
Yeah, and they let you get on with it.
Yeah.
Now, dumb money is better than good money if the good money interferes with, and they don't really understand it, because then they become bad money.
Yeah.
But most money in the venture and private equity space, I would posit, is bad money, because they're accountants, they're bankers, they're wealthy people who haven't got a clue about selling. And they were people.
Well, but also, is it because
hang on, this is really important. They were people who are in large organizations, and the brand got them to be successful.
Right.
They didn't. Okay, it's like those large company salespeople that come from big corporate and think they can sell. They can't. I see them all the time. They set up in business and they can't sell their way out of a wet paper bag. They cannot close their own fly. They're awful. And it's not because they're bad people. They just haven't got a clue, because they don't know what makes it, is required to be successful in selling. So, but coming back to answer your original question, you asked me about my pedigree. 18 years ago, I came across this system called Sandler. And I just spent, I put the stuff in my inbox for 5 months. It's genuinely the only regret I have in my life. Is that I put that in my inbox for 5 months, because by then I'd read 300 books on sales. And every one of them, the material was out of date when Queen Victoria was a kid. And it was the same old shit: sell features and benefits, ADA, attention, interest, desire, action.
All right,
BANT, all that kind of rubbish. And I took home these CDs one day. And in 15 minutes, I had 10 Road to Damascus moments. It was like someone took a mallet to the back of my head 10 times in 15 minutes. And I was just winded. And I sat on the end of my bed and I listened, enraptured. And I literally wept for 3 hours out of joy. I realized I never had to close. I never had to handle objections. I never had to present to sell. I never had to write another proposal as part of the sales process. I never had to sell on features and benefits. So
it turned your understanding and your whole way of your approach upside down.
Absolutely. It was like having the scales ripped from my eyes. And then I started applying this stuff, and for 4 weeks my sales plummeted, because I wasn't getting help. I was just listening to these audios. And then I went from 1 in 20 close rate to nothing for about 4 weeks. And I was working harder and harder. And then suddenly it started to click. And then I went to 2 in 3. A 2 in 3 close rate from 1 in 20 in about 4 to 6 weeks. Then I was closing 1 in 2. Then I started closing pretty much 100%. If they qualified, I closed them. So then I doubled my fees, and I carried on closing it. It was about 96%. And then I doubled my fees again within 12 weeks, and I'm still closing 100%. And then I realized it's never about the money in a real selling situation, which is why, coming back to that point where I was swearing at the screen a couple of weeks ago when the guy said, well, we have to discount to get deals over the line. No, you don't. If your salespeople had actually found people who were the right kind of prospect and weren't going after anybody, I mean, and bear in mind, their close rate.
So like a sniper rather than a blunderbuss kind of thing.
Absolutely. Well, not only a sniper, but what you're doing is you're lying in wait, and you're clear about who your customer is and who they're not. If you've got 10 criteria and you start to compromise because your pipeline is weak, empty, inconsistent, and you compromise and you go with someone who's only got 7.
Oh, you start letting people into your pipes that are not really qualified, not your ideal customer profile. Yeah, okay.
You end up creating a problem.
Like a Frankenstein's monster. Yeah.
Precisely. So then you end up creating features in your product that don't fit your ideal total addressable market. And then you start doing stupid things. This is, again, another poisonous, toxic thing that private equity-backed companies do, which is they over-assign quota. So you've got a target of 100 million. But when you add up all the salespeople's targets, it's 150 million. So what you've got is the CEO and the CFO are clinking champagne glasses because they hit their number of 100 million. The investors are happy, but the people who got you to be successful aren't. Your salespeople are suffering from burnout. Your managers are run ragged. Your salespeople, your good salespeople, are looking to leave because despite the fact they smashed the number that you needed them to hit, they're thinking, well, I can't make commission here, so I'm off.
Yeah, so you get the churn. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's the wrong type of churn. The people who stay are the ones that you want shot of. And they will hang on with their cold, dead hand for as long.
Well, you probably know Brian Burns.
I've heard of him. Yeah.
So he's quite vocal on that kind of point as well. So, a quick question for you. So, because I feel like we could talk for hours on this topic actually, and we will continue to talk at this rate. The T in the G&T technology. I mean, what's your view on that? Have you got any? I mean, what's your backstory on technology? It sounds like you kind of tech aware. You mentioned things like systems to help sales. I mean, any of you on the kind of how does tech help growth? How does it help with?
Are you talking about engineering?
No. I'm just talking about. I'm talking about technology. If you think about, you started involved in, the Sandler system, etc. 17 years ago, 18 years ago. Obviously, in the last couple of decades, technology's advanced quite significantly. Sometimes people, are in deep in technology, using technology to build things. I'm not saying that you do that, but you must use technology to help you do your job. or is that
Honestly,
are you just kind of like more of a consumer? Well,
I use very little technology for my business.
Right. Okay.
I'm helping my clients use lots of. No, let me rephrase. I'm helping them use the right technology. Okay. So get the fundamentals right. Teach your salespeople how to sell.
Yeah.
How to prospect. How to do social selling. So one piece of technology I use all the time: LinkedIn. Yeah. LinkedIn, without question, is the world's largest database of prospects. And if you're not using it daily, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. And if your reps aren't using it, you're mad. Okay. I use Zoom, particularly now that we've moved into this space. I've used the telephone, another fine piece of technology.
Direct mail.
Well, direct mail works as well if you do it right.
Yeah. Exactly.
All these things work. However, technology I love at the moment, I'm strongly in favor of. There's a couple of bits of tech that I think are brilliant. So Gong, Refract, Chorus. These are AI technologies that allow you to monitor and track every single call. And now you can take them into sales meetings with prospects if we're ever allowed back into their offices.
What was that? Sorry, you say Gong?
Gong.ai.
Right.
Gong.io, sorry. Refract.ai and Chorus.io, I think it is. And what they do is they use AI to analyze every single call. Now, under COVID, every single rep is having to use technology like phone or like Zoom.
Yeah.
So every call can be a teachable moment.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, it analyzes the talk time. When you talk about money, the amount of swearing that goes on. Did you know that if the prospect swears before the salesperson in a call, there's a 24% higher probability of closing that sale than if no one swears? And if the salesperson swears before the prospect does, an 8% higher than if no one swears.
Is that because you're creating an emotional response from the client?
Well, there's already a rapport. If you feel
okay. Okay.
Now, the balance of conversation. What's also really interesting is we're taught to match and mirror the prospect. Well, actually, the best reps have the prospect mirror them.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So they draw them in. Now, this kind of tech allows you to analyze every single call. And it's there's a reference base of 10 million, 20 million calls to work with. It's genius.
But this is what you're saying is that's tech for good, because that's actually going to help. It's going to give you the feedback loops to actually improve and give real data on what really works and what doesn't work.
Real data, and the best reps want it because they can coach themselves, and managers can do their job, which is help their salespeople get better. Now, there's another company that I've found called E for Enable. Now, they're a startup company, and what they have provided is a fabulous platform to enable managers to track the entire coaching experience. Because after recruitment, coaching is the single biggest defining factor that determines whether a sales team is successful, because the manager contributes. So E for Enable is a platform that allows managers to track every coaching conversation. It allows you to onboard, it allows you to coach and develop your people. And in conjunction with a tool like Gong, Refract, or Chorus, fabulous. And I've just come across the technology. Unfortunately, they're only available in the States, but it's called Cheetah IQ. And it allows salespeople to do all of their research. If you're selling into enterprise, literally in seconds. So you type in the name of an individual or the name of a company, and it sucks all the information from the analyst calls, from the annual report and account.
All right, it's like an aggregator.
Space.
Right. Okay.
Now, what we know, and this is really frightening, the average salesperson, when they're selling into enterprise, is incredibly lazy. And I'm going to share my screen with you for when we're doing, when you're putting the video out. Okay.
You show me a scary graph.
Okay. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we know is that the average salesperson fails to identify the right number of people within an organization that are likely to influence the purchase. So if they're less than 200, what our research shows is that on average, there are 3.43 influencers on the buying committee, but only 1.72 are typically contacted by salespeople. Now, this goes up in the 2 to 400 mark.
So like half.
0.85 to and 1.75. 400 to 1,000, there's 5.81 to 1.9. And this is the killer, because in enterprise deals, what we find is that there are 6.5 typically in the buying committee, but only 1.65 has ever been contacted by the salesperson.
Wow.
Now, when you think about the cost of pursuit and salespeople not doing their job and managers not holding them to account, that is an obscenity. It's disgusting that that still is allowed to happen. Now, as part of this whole process, it's really important that sales managers are really clear about their cadence when it comes to accountability, the pipeline management, about coaching, about doing field visits or windscreen training, ride-alongs. You cannot be an effective manager sat in your ivory tower managing the numbers. Let me be absolutely clear. You cannot manage the numbers. And if you think you can, you are an idiot. Okay? You manage behavior. You coach attitude. Okay? And you hold people to account. That's your job. And you can train skills. But you cannot manage the numbers. And anyone who thinks they can is an idiot and has no place in professional selling or professional sales management. If your bosses are telling you to manage the numbers, get another job. Go somewhere where you're going to be appreciated for being a professional instead of a workhorse.
Interesting stats. It's
horrifying.
Interesting stats and scary stats.
Yeah,
I mean, it shows that the bigger the organisation, they're not treading enough carpet.
Well,
that was that. Yeah,
absolutely, and they're wasting so much time and money, and they're leaving the door open for the competition to kick it open and steal their lunch. One of my favourite books is by a guy called Anthony Iannarino, and it's called "Steal Their Lunch," and it's all about displacing incumbents. You know, it's really not that hard. For most of us, finding greenfield sites is difficult, but a lot of what we've got to do is go after incumbent competition. I love when my clients have an incumbent that they've got to displace, because it's not difficult.
It's like a swap out team, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
A complete team. Yeah.
How do you take them out? And particularly where you're
it's like SAS and SAS tactics.
Well, in fact, for our book, Making Channel Sales Work, we make the point that you build a special forces unit. Your salespeople should be a special forces unit. Your channel partners should be special forces. They shouldn't be a land army of conscripts. Same thing with sales.
Well, it's interesting. I was listening to something the other day, and they were saying about the team size. They were saying about the general kind of reset that's happening in the world at the moment. Is if there's this, the analogy of the British Army is if you're a scout team, you're 2 people. You're a fire team, you're 4 people. If you're a platoon, section, you're 8 people, and then a platoon, you're 36 people. Is that you should be looking at bring, a bit like the comments you made a bit earlier. You should bring, go down a size. If you're 36, you should go down to potentially down to 8. You're 8, you should go down to 4, which is basically similar to what you were saying about the, working out what your go forward organisation structure should be in this new world.
From the work that I've been doing over the last few years, I've seen a pattern of behaviour in the channel. 2% of the partners generate, on average, 40% of the revenue. What are you doing with the other 98%?
Yeah.
Why are you not spending your time?
Is that about Marcus, to the thing you've got to kiss a lot of frogs before you find the princess?
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to get slimy lips along the way. But I think what you need to be clear about is what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And this is where people go wrong. It's like when you're hiring. If you look at what most job descriptions look for, they look for skills, experience, and historical results. all of which say, Andrew may have been good once, but they don't tell me whether you're good now, whether you were lucky, whether you carried, or whether you happen to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, all of those are lagging indicators. Predictors of success are things like habit. You have a prospecting habit, a listening habit, a questioning habit, a planning habit, a disqualification habit.
Yeah, yeah.
If you have those habits when you come to me, chances are you will bring them with you. Okay. Now, one of my favorite questions, this sort of, again, this is how I make grown men cry.
Okay.
So, Andrew, tell me, the C players that you're telling me aren't performing, did you hire them like that, or did you make them like that? Yeah? Because it was one or the other. That's when the rubber hits the road position, isn't it? Because did you inherit them, or did you? Is that part of the new team you've hired, and actually you then have to live by that accountability for doing that and finding out that result? That's where
how do you onboard the right team as you scale?
Well, that's where the next question comes, which is, tell me something. Of the 10 people in your team, how many of them would you still want on your team on the 1st of January 2021? At which point you say, well, 2, 3. So why are you hanging on to the other 7 or 8? Well, we need warm bodies in a seat. No, you don't. Never compromise on
that's back to the downsizing. So that's back to the reset. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So one question why I don't miss it in my head was triggered when you were talking a bit earlier was about we talked about some things that are great. We talked about things that are not great. So in the context of being great, is there? I mean, you don't have to name the companies, but I presume there are some green shoots. Yeah, I presume there are some organisations that you have come across who are getting it right, are putting the things in place, etc., etc. Is there any?
Yeah.
Is there any examples you can? I mean, it's up to you whether you want to name them or not, but just to give some. Well, who are the poster childs that like the band that you had on the wall when you're in your bedroom? Who are the poster childs in sales these days in selling the different things we sell?
Splunk, amazing company, well led, well managed, really.
Doug Merritt, he's a good guy.
Fabulous. Tom Shodoff, Bart Finelli, and I work with a load of people who are ex Splunk.
Yeah.
So they're really good. Outreach, the likes of Tom Castley.
Oh, Outreach, you mean the kind of the outreach platform for enabling sales? Yeah.
Sales enablement. So again, great sales enablement platform if you can find the other. So again, let me make this point. If you are an A player, go out and seek these people to become your boss. Okay. You want to look in Splunk and any of the companies that Tom Shodoff is now working with. Tom Castley, fabulous. Phycotic, they've gone from 10 million to $500 million in 5 years. Fabulous company in the
and that's a SaaS play, is it? Is that
they're a PAM provider in cybersecurity.
Okay,
amazing. They've gone from nowhere to being number 2 globally in their space in 5 years. Crystal Nose, really interesting company. OutSystems, another fantastic.
OutSystems,
UiPath. UiPath is doing amazing things. 8x8. These are just amazing companies. And
what's the quick question on that? So that's what I'm going to ask you is what's the pattern that you're finding with those leaders or the people that are doing it right and continue to do it right? What are the top ingredients you're seeing?
Okay, the red threads. First of all, hire ruthlessly well. Okay, hire A players and make hiring your number 1 job of all managers. Make sure all of your managers are constantly coaching from the top down. CEOs, CROs are coaching 50 to 70% of their working day. Okay, they have a strategy. They have a cadence. There's an operating rhythm in all of them. They are absolutely ruthlessly customer and partner centric.
Yeah.
They know they are in business because of the customer, not in spite of them.
Yeah.
When they have a channel, they are focused on helping their partners be wildly successful. Okay. Training is not something that's one and done. Training is constant. The training and coaching are happening every single day in those organizations. It's constant. There's no sitting back. And accountability. You are never satisfied with your performance. You come out, you do pre-call planning, you rehearse, you have red teams and white teams.
Right. So you do like role plays kind of thing. Yeah.
Role play is a constant. And when I hear salespeople say, "Oh, I'm great in front of the customer, but I don't really like this role play," you're probably shit in front of the customer. Blunt. Okay. Because if you can't do it when there's no pressure, then chances of you doing a good job in front of the customer, it's probably someone else who does the sale, or your brand, or the product happens to be something they want and need. So don't give me this shit. The best thing to do is practice, and practice deliberately. Intentional practice, deliberate, constant, intentional practice makes perfect. Okay.
So you say the discipline about that. Basically, it's a discipline.
Absolutely. Yeah. What I teach my clients: for every hour you're in front of a prospect, spend 3 hours of rehearsal. Now, if you're working on an enterprise or high ticket sale, that is that's a cheap investment of time. Don't go for the volume of being busy. Go for really focusing and disqualifying all the rubbish.
Yeah.
Spend your time pre-call planning, rehearsal, then execute, then do a written post-call debrief, then do a verbal post-call debrief, and then use that post-call debrief to feed your written pre-call plan for the next step.
Yeah.
Make sure that you are not attached to any one opportunity. And you have red teams and white teams. The white team defends the opportunity. And this is a fabulous tactic that we've started to implement the last couple of years. 2 salespeople have to sign off on an opportunity before it can go into forecast. So if you and I...
you got like a peer review basically on it.
Absolutely. But I won't let you put it into forecast if you've done a shit job. Now, then we have a red team whose job is to tear it apart before you go in. So that every step,
that's a good one. Forward. That's very good,
and that way you can 5x the deal. You can.
Well, you look at it through a different lens, you see, don't you? If you're not the actual deal owner, I mean, I call them deal clinics. Yeah. So how do you look at a deal and you do deal clinics? But what I found before was that you get a situation where people get, it depends. This is the next thing about them emotionally connected to a deal, is that they're kind of so close to a deal that they kind of like they're in it deep. Yeah, and they can't see the wood for the trees, kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's that kind of. So that having deal clinics, I think, is a way of actually just getting perspective on things and then being a bit more objective about it.
This is where the manager is really key. Sales managers, I believe, have the fundamentally most important job in any sales organization. They have the most precarious role. 2 bad quarters in a row, probably they're out. And they are the most underinvested people in the organization. Now, I give them a hard time, but my heart goes out to them, because the typical route to being a sales manager is you get tapped on the shoulder when your idiot boss gets fired and told you are one. Okay. Now, when
you like the ham in the sandwich, aren't you? Kind of things. I mean, or the cheese in the sandwich, because you've got leaders above you, you've got the field guys below you in the hierarchy, and you're getting squeezed from both sides, you're getting pushed from both sides.
And this, I believe that you could put people onto a management track in the recruitment process. Find out if that's their aspiration, profile them, see if they have an aptitude.
Or do they want to be an individual contributor? Yeah.
And from week 1, they should be learning the skills of management. There's a rehab center for really hardened criminals called Delancey Street, set up by a woman called Mimi Silver. And they'll have a black gang leader mentoring a white supremacist within a week of joining this group. Now, they have a 98% success rate of people not recommitting crimes.
Wow.
Versus something like an 8% success rate in the normal prison system. Okay. Now, what should happen is that you give people 15 to 18 months runway before you promote them into the next job. And from day one, they're starting to learn the skills that they need for the next job.
For stepping up. Yeah.
So that when they move into it, they're already ready.
They're already in flow. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so they start mentoring. Then they start coaching. Then they run sales meetings. Then they write the forecast.
So it's like safe hands, basically. You start doing the job before you do it because you're kind of assuming that role.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's like, but that's career development and mentoring and stuff like that. And that's actually requires, the leaders. You're going to require some strategic direction, some leadership thoughts around identifying those high potential people, and then bringing them through as part of the process.
Okay, the most common byline I hear from managers when I ask them how much of their time they spend coaching, and they say none to 10%, is, well, I don't have time to coach. Well, the reason you haven't got time to coach is you're not bloody well coaching.
Yeah.
If you were coaching, you'd have plenty of time.
So what are they doing if they're not coaching? What are they doing?
Managing the numbers.
Oh, KPI reporting.
With carrots.
KPI reporting.
Beating people with sticks. They're shouting and beating their chest and saying, well, this is the way I would do it. So they're telling people. That's not coaching. Telling people isn't helping anybody to learn how to fish. Yeah. All it's doing is rescuing. There's a model that we teach called the drama triangle, which describes every broken, dissatisfying, dysfunctional relationship you can or will ever have on 3 points of a triangle. You have a victim. Why me? Well, it's so unfair. This always happens. And their favorite byline is, save me, help me.
Oh,
okay. Then you have a persecutor. You piece of shit. You always, you never, you're such a. And it comes with the pronoun you in capital letters, diminishing you at an identity level, and a jabby index finger prodding you in the face or chest. And then you have rescuers. Rescuers help without boundaries.
Right.
They mollycoddle. They're permissive. Okay. And these are the managers who are run ragged, suffer from upward delegation. These are the kind of managers who spend their time saying, I'm so busy. Yeah, of course you're busy because you're not doing your job, because you don't know how to set boundaries. Because you're not delegating. You're taking on decisions.
What's the saying? They're saying yes to everything. They don't say no to anything. That's all that kind of stuff.
And they don't know how to plant their feet. They don't know how to push back against idiotic senior management.
Right. Okay. I mean, given the state of or the kind of, I suppose, a snapshot on where you think things are. I suppose if you're thinking about the growth, let's face it. When I started in the tech industry a few decades ago, it was seen as what the hell people, what are you doing that for? Yeah. And now suddenly it's like the kind of the hot area to work in. And obviously sales is a very interesting kind of area to be in, and growth is a very interesting area to be in. Have you got any predictions for the future? What's your, what's your thoughts around how it's going to play out and what needs to happen, and have you got a personal plan about trying to address these problems? It sounds like there's quite a lot still to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very optimistic that what's going to happen is there will be a bloodbath in the profession. I think it needs a good cleaning out. It needs a double dose of X-Lax.
More than a spring clean, then.
Actually, radical surgery to remove the many cancers in it.
Right.
It needs clarity of vision, and what it needs is great leadership. Great management, fabulous systems. So I think what's going to happen is that for the next 12 to 18 months, road warriors, they're pretty much redundant. If they cannot sell virtually, then why the hell are you going to keep them on? So they need to learn how to be able to use the telephone, need to be able to use Zoom or WebEx or whatever.
New skills.
And sell effectively. The other thing is, if you're going to expand internationally, if you've got a large domestic market like the US, you can probably get away with having people hop in their car, or probably you're not going to end up in quarantine there. But if you want to expand internationally, you can.
You've got a partner, presume.
Well, you can either build a direct sales force, which is a nightmare to try and manage and recruit internationally without being able to meet these people and whatever. But the other thing is to build a channel, and there you have two options: build a land army or build a special forces unit. And I'm banking on the Special Forces unit in Channel because that's where I'm focusing all my attention. We're getting some amazing traction there.
You mean build a smaller team that's going to be really focused on like an SAS team, a Special Forces team, Green Berets kind of thing? Yeah, okay.
One partner per geography or one partner per vertical in a particular region.
Yeah.
And you make them wildly successful. You train them how to sell.
Yeah.
You don't teach them, you teach them about the product, but the question that every salesperson should always ask when they learn a feature about the product is, Andrew, that's great. Now, how do I use that to sell it? Why would anyone care? Mm. And the three questions every salesperson should have at the tip of their tongue are why, so what, who cares?
Yeah.
But they don't. Why does it matter? Why is it important? Why do they need it? Why do they need it now? Why haven't they done something about it?
Yeah.
So what? Mm. If they carry on with the status quo, what's going to happen? So what if they don't have it? And who cares? Who actually gives a damn? Is it someone who matters? Or is it an engineer who thinks that what they really want is to play with another shiny object? Okay, which again,
we've not seen that before.
Well, most actions, most activities, most training, most reporting is onanistic. If you don't know who Onan was, he was the guy in the Bible that God smote for spilling his seed on the ground. Okay, basically, it's self-pleasuring, and it's focused on the wrong end of the problem. If you want to get things pregnant, don't do what Onan did, and that's what most management is, what most training is. It's utterly wasteful.
That's great. It's interesting. So you're optimistic, but you're also saying it's going to be a rough ride because it's going to be some hard decision making, etc. So the 2%
who do are going to come out of this leaner, faster, stronger, fitter, massively more profitable, and they will scale under control.
Yeah.
Those who don't are going to stagnate. They're going to struggle. They will fight for every ounce of margin. Take this, for example. I interviewed Jay McBain, who's the lead analyst for Forrester in Channels, Partners and Alliances.
Oh, yeah.
There are 600,000 MSPs worldwide. His prediction is 150,000 will go to the wall before COVID is over.
MSPs, sorry?
Managed service providers.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Now, that means 25% of the providers in the market will disappear. Now, along with a lot of their customers, in fairness, that's a massive growth opportunity for the MSP to survive.
Yeah.
And they can cherry pick.
And the same, 75% will disappear?
No, 25%. 150,000, 600,000.
Wow.
Now, you see this across the board. Every month that goes by in the UK as the lockdown, 400,000 businesses are at risk because they don't have cash reserves. When they're furloughing people, they're afraid that, in technical skills areas, they're afraid if they furlough their people, they'll go somewhere else to go and get a safe job with a larger company. So this is a massive opportunity.
Structural,
Seize it. But most people are going through what's effectively the same as when someone dies. They're going through a mourning process.
Yeah.
So they go through paralysis and denial and bargaining. That isn't going to get you out of this.
No.
I'm really proud to say that when I heard that the lockdown was going to be kicked off on the Thursday, on Wednesday, I packed up 2 bags and I moved from my office to my conservatory, and I haven't missed a beat. In fact, sales have gone up. Not one of my 26 clients has taken a backward step. In fact, most of them are having their best March, April, and May ever. I have some that have achieved more this in the last 3 months than they did all of last year. I've got one that's 3,500% up April to April.
Wow. Year on year. Wow.
Year on year. I have several that are closing 6-figure deals, which they're bringing forward. Their pipelines are full. And it's because
they've hit the vein, haven't they? They've hit the sweet spot.
Oh, what they did was they got it right before the crisis hit. No, this is really important. This crisis did not create weakness; it exposed it. If 60% of your pipeline fell off the cliff, it was because it was shit in the first place. It was never going to close. It was just going to suck up resource. And they say crisis saved you months of pursuing non-opportunities with non-prospects that your salespeople were attached to because they wanted to keep their mortgage paid.
Okay, so what you just talked about as well reminded me of a little quote from Mr. GC, Mr. Grant Cardone, advance and conquer, which sounds like similar to what you just talked about, is about the piece around how do you put the foot on the gas and push harder and scale. Well, appropriately.
The first thing you need to do is double down on your thinking and then work out what you're going to say no to. I believe the companies that will grow the fastest and be most sustainable are the ones that niche. It's no longer good enough to be the managed service provider into health. You need to be the managed service provider in Southeast London for walk-in clinics of under 50 doctors.
Yeah, so Mike, absolutely really, really targeted niche, Okay. So I suppose that links to just one of the final kind of areas I wanted to talk to you about was some of the takeaways. So, obviously people who listen to this podcast, are going to be CEOs, are going to be, CROs, VP of sales, co-founders, maybe technical co-founders who are trying to work out to, traverse sales. So I suppose a couple of questions would be about what are the kind of top three takeaways that you want to do as a wrap-up message? And then I suppose the second thing would be, if they were interested in getting some more help from you or your organization, how would they get hold of you?
Okay, top three takeaways. First thing, take a blank sheet of paper and redesign your sales operation from scratch. And that's something we're helping our clients do. And it's a painful, excruciating experience, but it will be well worth your while. Focus on recruitment. And in the next 30 to 90 days, there will be a glut of salespeople on the market. Get out there now and start prospecting for the A players and only recruit A players. Do not recruit C players. One A player is worth 3 Bs, one B is worth 3 Cs, and one A is worth 9 Cs. So pay your A players well. And really focus on finding the diamonds in the rough. I'm not saying go out and necessarily recruit experienced salespeople, because I think experience is the least important factor in making good hires. Hire good people with the right potential and then build them up. Once you've hired them, onboard them, train them, coach and develop them religiously every single day. That is your job. That's number one. Number two, make sure that you've clearly defined who your customer is and who your customer is not, and get the story right. And the story needs to come from the chief exec and the board and your salespeople. I think story is wasted in marketing. The brand is wasted in marketing. It needs to come from the founders. And I did a really fascinating podcast with a guy called Paul Alexandru, who helped Kahoot. Now, Kahoot is a learning platform. Now, they're a little business out of Norway. They have 700 million unique users, of whom 70 million use it every day.
How many every day? How many every day?
70 million use their platform every day.
Wow.
It was a platform designed for schools. Now it's being taken up by the likes of Google and Facebook, all those large tech companies, because it's so effective. Okay. Now this is a $1.5 million turnover business that has 700 million unique users. And that started with the story coming out of the founders.
So the founders' story, the origin story of why they started, start with why kind of thing.
Who they are serving and what their mission is.
Right, okay.
And get that really clear. And this is the thing that I've seen as another red thread in all those companies that I said go out and look at as the poster children. They all have that clarity of their story. And anyone in their sales organization can go out and articulate it clearly.
Yeah.
It's consistent. And the third thing will be make sure you focus on pipeline. Okay. Your job is to make sure you fill the top of the funnel with quality prospects. Make sure you're clear about who is not your prospect and disqualify hard. Okay. And then push those opportunities through the funnel so that within 7 months, you get 300% more qualified prospects moving through to closable, and within 12 months, 500% more moving from qualified to closable. Now, let me just finish with a definition of what a prospect is and what a qualified prospect is. Okay. A suspect is anyone who can fog a mirror because they still have breath in their lungs. Okay. Now, most of your pipeline is actually full of suspects. A prospect is in your target market, and they have a problem which you can genuinely fix today. You are speaking to a decision maker who is willing and able to make the decision to buy any product or service like yours. Is a decision maker who is willing and able to invest the time, the money, the resources, and allow you access in order to qualify properly. And they're working towards a clearly defined timetable for breaking ground on their project, and when they know when they want to realize the benefits. That's a prospect. That will go into forecast at 10% weighting. 10%. Okay. So most of you will now be sweating blood or tears of blood because you'll realize your pipeline is utter shit. Okay.
It's over optimistic, you could say. Yeah.
Wildly over optimistic. Meets those 5 conditions, and 70% of the questions that you need to have answered have been answered. A closable prospect meets those 5 conditions, and 100% of the questions have been answered. Now, a prospect goes in at 10%, a qualified prospect goes in at 30%, and a closable prospect goes in at 95%. If any of you have a 50-50 in your forecast, you may as well flick a coin. A 50-50 forecast is a weasel.
I hope it's double-headed. You might have a double-headed coin.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So what was your point there? You're saying that if you're trying to forecast with a 50%, then you're saying it's not.
It's complete rot.
It's not properly being forecasted, basically.
No, that means that your managers and your leaders have a blurred imagination and don't understand forecasting. It's total drivel. Absolute tosh, pish, and whatever else. But
what you're saying is that after you've done those first few stages, that then it can move very, very fast into a high probability. That's what you're saying. Typically,
within 3 to 12 weeks, when I'm working with my clients, their forecast accuracy is between 0.5% and 5% from actual. That's the variance.
Right. Okay.
12 weeks.
Yeah. Okay.
Because you focus on what's real and what's not.
Yeah. You cut all the garbage out, basically. Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Fantastic.
How to get hold of me? You can get hold of me on LinkedIn. I'm like all over it like a rash. Articles on there. I have
a very nice rash.
Absolutely. It's mildly itchy. I have 400 videos on YouTube. I have 2 podcasts. One called Scale Ups and Hypergrowth.podbean.com. Also available on Spotify and Apple and various others. And I have another one called the Inquisitor Podcast, which is marcuscauchi.podbean.com. And I've got 110, or I will by the end of this month, 110 interviews on there around sales, marketing, branding, lead generation, management, channel. And I've been so fortunate with my guests, incredibly generous, and it's all practical stuff.
Yeah.
And if you want to email me, it's mcauchi@sandler.com or marcuscauchi@me.com if that bounces for any reason. Okay.
Fantastic. Well, I can't thank you enough. It's been a fantastic episode. The amount of value you delivered in this short time we've been together has been astronomical. So I can't thank you enough for coming on the session.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And let's keep talking. So that was Marcus Cauchi, who is a bit of a CSO, Chief Evangelist of Sales Officer, you could say, CESO. But really thank you each time, and have a fantastic week. And let's catch up soon.
Thanks.